Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. I absolutely love those two opening lines from Marion Williamson's poem. Now, a lot of you know it became famous during the Coach Carter movie starring Samuel L. Jackson. Just watched it again last night. But to me, that is so, it resonates with me because it talks about the value of being different, the value of standing out from the crowd, not being a cow, but a rhino, as Jay would say, not being afraid to step out. Now, earlier you heard Jay talk about the power of Michael Jordan and how he was willing to be persistent. But a couple other things Michael had in common with a couple other folks like Kobe Bryant, Billy Gates, Steve Jobs, Walt Disney. They had the willingness to be different. Let me repeat that. The willingness to be different. And that's what makes them great. Absolutely phenomenal. I want you to think about what your world, our world, would be like without Walt Disney. Pretty boring, eh? That creativity just gone. No Magic Kingdom. No Mulan and everything else in the world. Wow. What about Steve Jobs and Bill Gates? Many of us right now are watching this on our computers or our phones. Not possible without Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. It's because of their differences. Now, for me, my personal journey to be different has always been there, but it really hit home back in March 2020. That's when it all started for me, my recent journey. See, Mom had breast cancer. She fought that like a beast for 20 years, but it came back in the form of liver cancer. So we put her in the hospital. And as we all know, March 2020 was COVID. So restrictions were in place. So being the local son, being in town, I was the one designated as the sole visitor. At first, it felt like a hardship, but it was a blessing, an absolute blessing. Got to be with Mom during her last couple months. We eventually brought her home so my family and I could take care of her, make her comfortable during her last couple of months. But what a blessing to be with my mom for those last couple of months. Then right after that, she passed in May. Dad diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia. So we put him in a retirement home. Once again, COVID's still going on. Still sole visitor. But man, the time I got to spend with Dad, visiting him 4 or 5 times a week for an hour or two at a time, just talking in his own world sometimes, but it was awesome. Once again, a blessing, not a curse. Dad passed a year and 10 days after Mom. After spending those 2 long years taking care of both of them, I was like, wow, what do I do now? And my eldest daughter, they're all wise, said to me, Dad, why don't you take care of yourself? I said, wow, that's a great idea. Because at that point, I could have very easily, gone into a deep depression and mourned the loss of 2 great people in my life. But I decided to do something different. Decided to take care of myself. Met with a trainer. She changed the way I eat, changed the way I work out, changed the way I train, changed everything about me. And I am so thankful for that because that changed my life. It changed the way I think, it changed the way I eat, changed about everything in my life. And it was during that time that I learned the process to be great. I've always talked about it. I've always read about it, but I was actually able to live greatness. I was able to go through that process of greatness. But Coach, what's that process? It comes down to a couple steps. Acceptance/awareness, action, and accountability. Now, we all know about action because action gets the glory, and rightfully so it should. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the other ones for just a little moment. Acceptance and awareness. Coach Jay nailed it quite nicely when he said, when you get in the car, you have to know where you're going. Because if you don't know where you're going, you're going to go nowhere very, very fast. So you have to be aware of where you're going. But you have to be aware of where you are in your life situation, and aware of what change you want to make. You have to be willing to accept that you need to make a change. You have to be willing to accept help to make that change. That is so crucial. Accepting the help, accepting the fact that you need to change, accepting the help. I'm a big advocate of accepting who we are as people. I'm totally for that. However, I think that sometimes we take that a little bit too far, and that we accept our situation for what it is. The worst lines in the world are, it is what it is, and that's the way it's always been. It doesn't have to be that way. You can accept your situation, but don't settle for your situation. Let me repeat that one. You can accept your situation, but don't settle for your situation. Go ahead and make that change. Action. That's where the grit and the glory happens. That's where you got to get down and get dirty. Let me tell you something about action before we even get started. Action, true success, it's not sexy. Let me repeat. True success is not sexy. It's dirty. You got to be willing to do the work. You got to be willing to work hard in the dark. So when the lights are shining, you're shining bright. But you can't do the work alone sometimes. You need someone to help you with that process. Whether it's a GPS in the car, not always personal, or that coach, that teacher, that mentor, that consultant. They're going to help you map out the process to do the work. I've always been a hard worker. I've always done the grind. But so often I would do the grind on a hamster wheel. It wasn't until I was able to sit down with a coach who taught me the proper process. So I was able to get off the hamster wheel and start making progress. You got to work with someone who knows what they're doing, someone who's been there before and helped others help themselves. You accept the fact that you want to work with others and get that action going. Oh, you're going to start seeing that progress. Things are going to start to happen. The train's going to start moving. Woo! Okay? But it's going to come a point where you're going to have to say, well, how am I doing? That's where accountability comes into play. I'm not going to talk a lot about action, as I mentioned. I could talk about action for like 30 minutes. But I want to talk a little bit more in depth about accountability, because that's where things really change. Accountability comes in many different forms for many different people. As a business owner, your business partner is going to hold you accountable. Your staff's going to hold you accountable. Your customers are going to hold you accountable. You're going to hold yourself accountable. You're going to look in the mirror and say, yeah, that was a great day. Or you look in the mirror in the morning and say, yeah, it's going to be a great day. Hold yourself accountable, as well as other people holding you accountable. Before we talk about others, let's talk about what you're looking at when you're holding yourself accountable. Anybody who's in math or a teacher like myself, we're going to be able to tell you that numbers tell a great story. But the question is, what numbers are you looking at? Those of us in the gym, we hit the gym and we always step on the scale, because that's what we do. But it's not all about the pounds, because there are guys in the gym who are a couple inches shorter than me and weigh 20, 30 pounds more than me. But man, they are lean, because the true numbers, when you get to a certain point, goes beyond the pounds, goes to the body fat percentage. And that's where the numbers need to make a point. If you're on social media, it's more than just the likes. It's about the engagements, about the shares. So make sure you're looking at the right numbers. As a teacher and a coach, I'm held accountable by the parents of my students, the parents of my players. And that can make a big difference in your life. Quick story. Last year we had a game, and I really wanted this W for the girls. Perhaps I wanted it too much. Because after the game, one of the parents sent me a quick note and said, "Coach, what are you doing? You're ruining this poor girl's confidence." I said, "What do you mean?" So I looked back at the game film, and I realized that I played two girls way, way less than they should have played. Way less than they usually play. And one girl way too much. So I had to do something about it. I could have easily just said, "Okay, I won't do it again," and let that parent know that. Took it a step further. Went to my players, because I'm also accountable to them. I said, "Ladies, coach had his head up his backside yesterday. Playing time was way off. Won't happen again. And I'm going to fix it." Sure enough, 3 weeks later, two girls who didn't play a lot were dramatic influences on us winning the final game of the year. All because that one parent held me accountable. And to this day, I am thankful for her holding me accountable, because we have to be held accountable. Once you're held accountable, you can make the adjustments. You can be aware of where you are. You can go back to the actions and then become accountable again. Like I said, it's all a process. Everything works together. In the fitness biz, we say you can't out-train a bad diet, because it all has to work together. Now, I'd be neglectful if I didn't mention a couple quick things. First of all, on your journey or whatever quest you are on, you're going to have ups, you're going to have downs, but you got to be persistent. As Dr. J said, you got to be persistent. That's what this whole talks are about. Persistence. Keep going. Because when things are tough, that's when your toughness is going to keep you going. And your why and your passion keeps you going. You're also going to look around at other people. You're going to see them doing this and doing that. I'm going to tell you, do not judge your success by the success level of others. The moment you do that, you are setting yourself up for failure. Look at them, see what they're doing, but don't compare. Use them as inspiration. Look at them and say, "Wow, look how hard they're working. I can do that." Or, "Look how hard they're working and they're making gains. I can do that too." Or in some cases, you're going to look at someone who's successful, and you're going to say, "Really? I can do that. No, I can't do that. I can do it better." Use them as inspiration for you to be better. Now, you can find a lot more details about the process to greatness in my book called Be Different, Be Great, The Process to Personal Greatness, available on Amazon. I also do in-person presentations for the youth of the school. But whatever you do, whatever your quest is, because everybody has their own level of success. Once again, I could go on talking about that forever. Everybody has their own level of success. I want you to find out what your level of success is. Be truly authentic to who you are. You do that, you have the beliefs in place, you're going to be fine. Most importantly, if you do nothing else, I want you to be different, be great, because that's what it's all about. Because, folks, you got this. You can make a change. Don't settle. Thank you, JB.